Hello, today I'm out and about doing laundry, and you know, when you're an actor, one of the things you have to do is laundry. It just sort of comes with the trade. Today's video is going to be about accents and dialects. What is the difference between an accent and a dialect, and then also what is a regionalism and that kind of thing. I think it's a distinction that many people never think of. They interchange those words, but there is a distinct difference between them, and you know, knowing that difference might help you a little bit or not. Let's see after the bump. Hi ho, I'm Doug Fahl, your augmented actor, helping you augment your acting career with tips and tactics and tech. Oh my. If you're a new person to this channel, welcome, and I hope you like what you see here. If you do, hit that subscribe button. So you'll notice at the beginning of this video I was doing a British dialect, or I was attempting to do a British dialect. A lot of the shows that I'm in, I have to do British dialects. It just kind of comes with the territory. I've also had to do German accents and French accents and Italian accents, and it made me think, well, what is the difference between a dialect and an accent? Well, let me tell you. It's pretty simple. A dialect is any time you are speaking differently within your own native language. So for instance, I'm an English speaker, that's my native language, so I might have an American dialect if a British person is listening to me. In the States, where I'm located, I might have, you know, a surfer dude, kind of dialect because I'm from California, or I might have Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, New York, Manhattan kind of dialect because I'm from New York, or I might have a George W. Bush, Texas drawl kind of thing from being down south, or I might have oh my dear Rhett Butler, Atlanta, Southern Belle dialect because I'm down in Atlanta. Or I can have an Australian accent because English is the native tongue in Australia as well. So I'm not going to try to do that one because I'm not very good at it. Anytime you're speaking the same language but a different area, that is a dialect. Dialects include more than just the pronunciation of words. They also include the vocabulary, the vernacular that you use to describe different objects and people. They include grammar, they include inflection and tone and pacing. Different people in different regions speak with a higher pitch, perhaps, or they speak a little faster or more aggressively. Dialects also include localized slang terms, whether or not a speaker will pronounce certain consonants, and whether they pronounce H's or T's, those kind of things. Dialects are not just based on location, they're based on socioeconomic class, whether you're super rich and educated, or whether you're inner city, urban lifestyle, or whether you live in a rural area or a city area, your education level, all those things can play into different dialects. So there's millions of different dialects out there for different areas. Languages develop over time because different dialects within a language take over a long period of time and become separate languages. Once they become different enough that speakers of that dialect could not understand another dialect, then that becomes kind of its own language. Romance languages like French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian, those all come from Latin, Cantonese, and Mandarin. Variations of Chinese language are different dialects that have developed into their own language. Also the Germanic languages, Nordic, Swedish, Finnish, they're different dialects that have turned into languages of their own. Now, accents are different than dialects in that an accent is basically any time somebody who is foreign to a particular dialect or language is speaking in that dialect or language. The people that live in that region or that are using that dialect will detect an accent on that person. So this is particularly noticeable when you learn a foreign language, a language that is not your native tongue. You will carry remnants of your native tongue into that new language, and that will show up as an accent to speakers of that new language. I'm an English speaker, so if I try to speak French, I will carry over remnants of the English way of speaking in my French. So a French person will detect an English accent in my French speaking. The other thing to know about accents is that they are mostly about pronunciation of words. So they're mostly verbal and spoken, and you can't really determine an accent based on writing or grammar. That's more of in the realm of a dialect. Accents are about hearing things and how we pronounce words. So you will have an accent if you are in a foreign land. You won't be able to detect it, but they will be able to detect it in you. Just like when somebody comes to your town from out of state or out of the country, you can detect an accent on them. We all have an accent, whether we want to admit it or not. I live in Seattle, where people say, oh, I don't have an accent. But somebody from Seattle going to New York City, for instance, the people in New York are going to be able to detect a Northwest accent and vice versa. Basically, if you're speaking a different language, you're going to have an accent that is of your native language to the listener in that other language. As an English speaker, people are going to have a German accent or a French accent or an Italian accent or a Spanish accent or a Chinese accent. And finally, we have a regionalism. A regionalism is just basically a more specific area within a particular dialect where somebody is speaking maybe a few words or sentences differently than the rest of the dialect traditionally does. For instance, people in the Midwest in the States use the word pop instead of soda, or some people say soda pop and some people say Coke, and those are all like an example of a regionalism. Or for example, if you go to Manhattan, everybody has a New York accent, a New York dialect. There are different boroughs of New York, and so different people will have different regionalisms based on the boroughs that they're in. So it's just more specific sort of dialect. You also might have that, that sort of Jewish American, Woody Allen kind of, neurotic dialect, or you might have that, yo, ma, Italian aggressive dialect that a lot of Italian Americans have in New York. Those are kind of examples of regionalisms as well. Regionalisms and dialects, they can blend a bit, depending on who your parents are and where you've lived throughout your life. You might pick up a few different dialects and blend them together. You might have an accent because you're a native speaker in another language, and then you pick up a British dialect and stuff. So things can kind of blend. There's no real hard and fast true way of doing a dialect. So just take that into consideration. Try and learn it the standard way, and then you can have a little bit of flexibility in that. For instance, I'm doing the Swindon region British dialect for a show I'm in. That dialect has a lot of hard R's, like daughter, and they use a lot of glottarals, like they don't pronounce their T's and stuff like that, and they say going instead of going. But then when I'm doing the accent, I sometimes fall into a bit of a Geordie accent. I start saying, mate, you need to go over there and do that thing with the bairn. And then sometimes I also fall into like a London Cockney a bit, and say, oh, how are you feeling today? You got a lot of thoughts about things and that kind of thing like that. So it sort of all blends together. And to an American who's ignorant of different dialects or regionalisms, it's all going to sound like a British accent. They might feel like something's a little bit off. To somebody who lives in that area or that region, they're going to say, oh, you're terrible, you suck, Doug, and you're doing it all wrong. And it's like an American would be able to tell somebody from Texas versus New York versus Boston versus California, and if you blended all those together into one accent, you'd be a mess, So the goal as an actor when you are learning a new dialect is to lose your accent as much as possible so that native speakers of that dialect or that language will not be able to detect an accent. However, if you're asked to have like a French accent in a play, you want to recreate the experience of being a French native speaker coming to an English country and still carrying over remnants of that accent. Rather than learning a French dialect, you're learning a French person's approximation of what an accent would sound like. It's a little bit more confusing. For film and television, it's important that you kind of try to nail those specific regionalisms as best you can, because you'll face an audience that will see that kind of thing. In theater, it's a little bit more flexible. You can get away with a close approximation, and most people will let it slide, except for maybe a person who's native to that area coming to see that show. It's a bit interesting to think about all that kind of stuff, I think, at least. Thank you for slogging through this explanation, this spewing forth of words. I hope you can get your laundry done today like I'm getting my laundry done today. It really sucks to have dirty laundry. We actors, we have to do laundry all the time. So I hope you found this dialect video really interesting, and if so, please click on some of the other videos that I have here, because you know, they're interesting in their own unique ways as well, and I want you to see everything that I've already posted in the past. So please do a little digging. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.